Welcome to the Suspense Squad, where authors interview authors. Our guest today is Lynn Shannon. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be with you guys.
Well, we're glad to have you here. We're going to be talking today about Lynn's upcoming release, Ranger Integrity, which is number 7 in your Texas Ranger Heroes book, right?
Yeah.
It releases November 26th. Would you want to read the back cover copy for us?
Sure. Framed for murder. Private investigator Sierra Evans is searching for a missing woman when a tip leads her onto a boat with a dead man. He's been shot with her gun, and the police believe she's the killer. Arrested and charged, Sienna is shocked when she's bailed out of jail by her ex-fiancé, Eli. She hasn't seen him in 5 years, not since he walked away from her and their relationship. Texas Ranger Elijah Goodwin doesn't give second chances. His childhood taught him a strict adherence to the rules leads to success. Falling in love with Sienna was the only time he deviated from doing the smart thing, and it blew up in his face. Still, when he discovers she's been charged with murder, nothing will stop him from coming to her defense. The infuriating woman is many things, gorgeous, brave, and stubborn, but she's no killer. Digging for answers thrusts Sienna and Eli into a case with far deeper implications than either anticipated. As the threats increase, Eli vows to keep Sienna safe, but protecting her may cost him everything: his heart, his career, even his life.
Awesome.
Great. That's good.
Sounds really good. So we're going to start. We're going to ask you a few questions. Sammy, why don't you ask your question first?
Hi, Lynn. How you doing?
Great.
My question is, what are your favorite things about, or favorite thing about your hero and heroine?
I really love that it's a second chance romance. I love second chance romances. I write them. I think they're the most common ones I write. Friends to lovers and second chance romance. I love them. I think there's something very special about falling in love with someone and then having a breakup and then coming back years later when you're older and wiser, and how you can navigate that relationship again. I think it's a lot of fun, and it adds a depth of emotion that I think, and a lot of layers that don't exist when the hero and heroine first meet just at the beginning of the story. So I really love
Lots of
that
conflict. Yeah.
I love reunion stories too. Those are great. Second chance. Okay, Shannon, why don't you ask your question?
Okay, let me get my eyes on here. Hey, Lynn, congratulations.
Hi.
So my question for you is, what are some tips that you use to get through the middle of your stories when things can get bogged down?
Oh, it depends. Yeah, it depends on what's wrong with the story. So sometimes I don't know what comes next. So I have to walk away from the story and I have to think about it or read or watch TV shows to kind of get my creative mind working. Sometimes I just have to walk away from it for a day. Sometimes I need a couple of days just to kind of recharge a little bit, or maybe just think about the story. Sometimes, because I'm an intuitive writer, I know that there's something wrong with the story, but I don't know what it is. And that can be very problematic. So usually I have to go back to the very beginning of the story and read it all the way through and see if I can identify where things kind of went wrong. And the third is there can be a lot going on because I'm a very emotional writer. Writing for me is very emotional and very mentally draining. And if I'm tired, or if there's a lot going on in my personal life, it can make it very difficult for me to write, and also to be like in the story and not think that everything is horrible. Sometimes the story is just fine. It's me who needs to take a break and like go outside and take a walk and like relax. The story's fine. So I think it really depends on what's going on, why I think the story isn't working. And I just try to use different methods to see if I can get through it. But I'll be honest, I threaten to throw my computer against the wall like every book, at least 3 times.
There's always a point, I think, that comes where we're like, this is the greatest story ever. It's gonna be so good. and then you start writing it, and then it's like, I hate this story stinks. And then you kind of get to that ending part, and you're like, actually, it didn't turn out too bad, and then you get your edits, and you're like, oh, the story stinks. Like you just go through, or at least I do. I don't know. I go through a roller coaster of emotions. So it's always good to hear how other people handle those moments when things get sticky and tough and you just don't know which way to turn with the writing or the story.
Yeah, I go through a roller coaster of emotions while writing a story. And then when I'm done with the story, I never think about it again until I get the audiobook. And then I'm listening to the audiobook and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I was writing it, or right before. Oh, okay.
I think it's just that you're so tired of it by the time you get to the end. It's just like, yeah. Hope, why don't you go ahead and ask the question?
Okay, well, you already kind of answered one of the questions I had in saying that you're an intuitive writer, but tell us about how you actually got started with writing.
It was kind of an accident, not really. I mean, I moved to Greece, and then I had a job for a while, and then I stopped working there, and my kids were very little, and my husband was working really long hours. So it was very difficult for me to have a job outside of the home with my two little kids. So I kind of went to my bucket list and I said, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. I was a huge reader all my life. I stole books from the library, from the school library. I didn't really steal them. I borrowed more than they would let me check out because I could read more in a weekend than the checkout limit was. So I used to like put them in my backpack and like take them home and then bring them back on Monday. And I'm almost sure the librarians knew I was doing it, but they just let me. So I was a huge reader, and I had always thought, oh, I could write I want to try my hand at writing a book. And I was in this position where I was like, why don't I do it now? What am I waiting for? And I just started. And it took a few years. I kind of resisted self-publishing for a while. My husband told me to do self-publishing right out of the gate. He was like, you're probably going to hate like giving the book over to a traditional publisher. You're probably not, you're going to want control over the cover and stuff like that. And I was like, no, no, no. And then I realized he was right. And I have written for traditional publishing, and it's been a very enjoyable experience, but I have to say that I do really love having control over the story, the artwork, the covers, the advertising, all of that. I really enjoy it. It goes hand in hand with the writing, and it uses my brain in a different way. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. And I published Ranger Protection. And I was so blessed that the readers, it took off in a way that I had not expected. And I was like, oh, I'm on to something. And I just kind of kept going. And I have been very, very, very blessed with my readers. They are amazing. They pre-order my books. They come back again and again. They send me emails about my books. They message me about my books. I mean, I'm so lucky. I can't even explain how wonderful it makes me feel to know, as a kid who used to steal library books, that people are actually reading my books and like escaping from their own world for a while. And like it touches them in a way that I could never have like anticipated when I started this process. But I really can't say enough how blessed I feel about that.
Because I mean, that is ultimately why we do what we do, to bless others with words that, that God has given us. And, and we receive the blessing back when they enjoy it. So that's a great answer. Thank you.
It was my goal when I started writing, that I wanted someone to close the book and think, oh, that was an amazing story. Because we've all been there as readers. We all know what that feels like, right? When you close the cover of a book, or when you turn off your Kindle and you're like, that was an amazing story. And that's always what I try to give the readers with every single book that I do. And I know you guys do too.
How long does it take you generally to write a book?
Oh, it depends on the book. How much am I fighting with it, or is it just flowing very well? I mean, I have written a book in 3 weeks. I don't know, that it just kind of fell out of me. I just knew the character. It was, again, a second chance romance. I had been thinking about the characters for a long time, and it just kind of rolled right out, and I just knew. But it's taken me 3 months, sometimes 4 months, depends. Genuinely, it oftentimes can depend on what's going on in my personal life. Like I said, because writing is so mentally and emotionally draining for me, if there's a lot going on in my personal life that needs that emotional and mental attention, it can be very difficult for me to kind of portal myself into a story. And in order to portal myself into a story, a lot of times I have to ignore a lot of other things in my life. My kids laugh because they will say that I'll be at dinner thinking about my story, and they can tell from the look on my face that I'm actually not there with them. I'm thinking about what's going on in my story. And because I have teenagers, I try to take breaks so that I don't do that all the time, because I think that's not good for them too, that I have a responsibility to them as well to be present. But it can be hard when you want to be like in your story all the time.
Okay, Darlene, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I actually had two. How many books have you written?
16, 17, somewhere
wow.
around there. I
Yeah,
don't really
that's
keep
amazing.
Is that horrible that I don't really keep track?
That's amazing.
I write them, I publish them, I move on to the next one. I don't, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Like
Wow. Well, it's nice to meet you. I've never actually met you before, so it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, and I've read several of your books, and they're amazing.
Oh,
really, really good.
Thank you. So my question to you is, if you tell us something about yourself that we can't find anywhere on the internet, some secret or no, it doesn't have to be a secret. I'm just joking. But something that you haven't shared on the internet.
I started dating and married my husband in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So, and we've been
Ew,
together 18 years. Tomorrow is actually the anniversary of our first date. I did not remember, but he did, because he came to me this morning and he was like, tomorrow it's the anniversary of our first date.
Oh,
I was like, it is? Oh, he's right, it is. Terrible.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us, Lynn. We're all glad to meet you, and we can't wait to read Ranger Integrity. It'll be available November 26th online, and where
And paperback and large print, and you can get the paperbacks and the large print everywhere, and the ebook is available at Amazon.
Awesome, great. We look forward to reading it. Thank you for being with us, Lynn.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy to be with you guys.